We are loading. Welcome everyone to the NDILC Principles number 11. Thank you everyone for our council being here today. I'm so excited. We are October 6th. My son's birthday is in 2 days. I know, who cares? Anyway, so welcome everyone today. Be accountable for yourself, for your community, and for your planet. It is one of the most important things that I think about is what's going on right now, especially within the world events that we see going on, especially the climate we just had in Florida, the impact that we see that's going around. We had just in Kentucky, we have in Pakistan. The impact that's hitting us is very important that we understand. How can we help each other to share the resources and information that's out there? So I want to welcome, right now we have Tammy Bunnell, who's of Exit Realty. She is the wonderful, Chitra, wonderful. She is the co-chair of Exit Realty International, based out of Canada, we were just talking about. We have Erica Courtney. She just got knighted in Canada. Woohoo! And so thank you very much. She's Lieutenant Colonel in the Army, and she is a strategic advisor, which is unbelievable, female strategic advisor. We have Marty Dutch, who's joining us for the first time, and welcome to the council. She is a senior philanthropic advisor for First Foundation. Absolutely love it. And she does 140 nonprofit pro bono. So love. And then we have Chitta Desiree, who's the founder and CEO of Amicus Brain for aging population as a care provider, software and technology. So welcome. So we have, let's see, we have 2 on the East Coast and 3 on the West Coast. Hey! All right, so welcome. So the video I'm going to show, keeping to tradition that Chitta started with, what I absolutely love. We are going to share a screen. Hopefully I'm getting better at this. And we're going to share a screen about the playlist that is going to be from the impact of what's going on for nature. So I picked a video that I really wanted to talk about what's going on with the impact of, let me go back and start it here. Wait, hold on, gotta stop it right real quick. Pause it, hold on, we're gonna pause. And I have to share the screen. I know you think I'd be better at this by now, but we're trying. And share a screen. I know Chitra's laughing over there. Hey, I was last night doing a thing and go, okay, can we see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we're gonna do this.
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years, 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
Oops, hold on. Powerful, huh?
Absolutely. Chills. My hair is standing on my hands when she
So Chitra, so how, you talk about chills, which it was the very first time I saw it. And every time I see it, it brings the same chills, and even more impactful, obviously, what's happened in Florida and Pakistan. And you think of the impact that's going on, the health consequences, and you're in the health department. So how do we be more accountable for what's going on with that, the awareness of what's going on, and your stories that you'd like to share on that?
So whenever we talk about climate change and all of its ramifications, and I think there are many perspectives to bring forward. One, as a global citizen, as a citizen of this world, Mother Earth or Mother Nature, what are our roles, what are our responsibilities, how are we accountable? And also, I think there is another perspective in terms of the work we do too. So all the the deleterious effects or bad effects of everything we do, unfortunately, it's not only affecting us personally, but it will also affect us from a business perspective in everything we do. So I look at it, those are at least a couple of the perspectives I would like us to discuss. So
excellent. So Tammy, you work in multiple countries. You're out there hitting the pavement every day, talking to as many organizations to help greater the good of being successful and being entrepreneurial and always looking forward. How does this affect, and what would you like to add to comment?
Well, I think that we are all global citizens. That was the perfect words, Chitra. And I think that we all have a responsibility. We need to lead by example and take responsibility. And I think we witnessed during COVID, when people weren't driving all over the place, how nature came back, and how all these animals came back, and you could see the air and smog was disappearing. So that it's something that we can help control. And I think that the whole thing is finding something that you can really be passionate about, find a passion project that you can really wrap your hands around so that you can stick with it. We're talking about accountability, being accountable for ourselves, being accountable for our planet, being accountable for the community and the environment we live in. And I think that the thing that helps you to stick with it is finding something that's a real passion project for you. Your emotions have to be involved for you to stay in motion and to be able to stick with it. So, it's always those stories. We have this young man in Indiana, 7 years old, and his mom's a broker owner with us with Exit. And she was talking to her children, a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old, 14-year-old daughter, 7-year-old son, on the ride, taking them to school and talking about, because we consider everybody in our organization family, talking about her family members in Florida and what they were going through right now and how overwhelmed she was. And she wanted to figure out how she could help. And her son said, "What's a hurricane?" Because he's 7 and he hasn't had that exposure. And she explained the whole thing. And after they dropped her daughter off and they went back to the house before taking him to school, he went upstairs and he grabbed his piggy bank. And he grabbed his piggy bank and he came back down crying and said, "I want you to give this to them. I think there's a lot of money in here and I want you to give it to them. And I think it'll help." And she took it to Facebook. And what happened after that was crazy. It went viral. She's actually on her way down there with 4 tractor trailers full of stuff, all because of this piggy bank project. And it's really, from a leadership standpoint, we've got to get passionate. And then we've got to get our people passionate, right? We've got to get them caught up in whatever mission it is that we're focused on. Erica, you focused on helping all these women and helping them to be able to transition, and immigrants that are being abused and misplaced and just having all this difficulty. Putting a plan together and getting everybody passionate about it really does make a difference. But I think then putting some timelines in place, some sort of a target so that you can really stick with it. December 31st, 2022, we accomplished X, Y, and Z. How do you feel? And if you can visualize that, then every time you really feel frustrated, because people go through stress and they get frustrated and they hit a wall. But if you can really picture what's going to be different, and for me, probably the biggest thing that helps to stick with it, whether we're responsible, I'm responsible for thousands of people, but it doesn't matter if it's our own individual nucleus or what it is, determining who benefits if we succeed. Is that the next generation? Is that all the animals that you're madly in love with? Is that the environment that you're in love with, the beautiful trees? Who benefits if we succeed? And you might have some that you're tied to emotionally, that they're people you're responsible for, but then there might be things that you are really passionate about. And I think when you can really tie the emotion to it, as well as educating yourself on as much as humanly possible, you can really make a difference. You can really make strides. And all of us, if we're in any type of a leadership position, we belong leading by example.
Beautifully said.
Love that. That was so nice. So Erica, so like you said, I mean, you do things live in the sense that you change policy, you change implementation immediately. You don't like go through a whole process, write a report and go back with it. So that experience of what this video meant to you.
I can draw upon two experiences. So the 50 media target that I'm working on from a defense standpoint is when you're looking at climate change, it leads to displaced people. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says that basically displaced people and climate change are going to be the biggest thing that we as a force are going to be dealing with in the next 20, 30 years, which takes us away from, the traditional mission that we do. Because when you have displaced people, that equates to war and strife, and they're displaced because of hunger and because of water and because of, threatening things in their environments. So as you can see within the last couple of years, just Ukraine, and when you have floods, people are displaced. Florida right now, you've got people completely out of, they have no neighborhood to go home to. So what does that mean? That burden on others for that safety, that security, and for those, addressing human needs, sense of community. And a second piece is that, working with my mother, she worked in an original growth rainforest in Ecuador. It was the last to escape the ice age. It was the only real rainforest left. And there's a ton of biodiversity in a place like that. And those are the lungs of the planet. And so when you have illegal loggers and miners, et cetera, and you see these original growth rainforests get cut down at alarming rates, the carbon that is under the tree is now released. It's not cooling the planet. It's not cleaning the air. So there's nothing that we can manufacture as human species that's going to duplicate what all of those trees do. There might be short-term money and something to try to clean the air, but again, like we have to be responsible stewards of the one home that we know.
To your point about the trees is excellent. The conversation is that you think of California, we have 1,200 wells right here that have already dried up here in the state of California. It's over double. So what happens when these wells dry up and they continue to dry up is that I had to tell someone, I said, you now create sinkholes because now you've extracted the water, the moisture out of earth. So these sinkholes are popping up everywhere. One of the reasons I actually didn't buy real estate in Newport Beach or Newport Coast was because those sinkholes that they had over there within the first year and a half of construction, because they're all fill versus cut. And so the idea is that if we're extracting this out of our earth, to your point, and you're taking the tree out, which is the skin and the shaping of the earth itself, we have a problem. So excellent point. And you talk about the refugee resettlement, you talk about the natural disaster, the humanitarian portion of that, and what are we doing with the cattle in Texas? I mean, we could go down the list that's being done, because it's not just the people, it's the feed that goes through it, the agriculture part of it too. So excellent points, Erica. Thank you. So Marty, you are on.
Well, what struck me when I was watching it is I don't think we're taking into account the stress that's on the next generation. When you ask them what they worry about, this is a worry. Like they're worried the world, that all the resources are going to end in their lifetime. I mean, the stress that layer of that is something that surprises me, because, when at my age, we were duck and covering under our desks. Like our worry was this unknown, potential bomb that was going to land. But we never had this, and that only happened every now and then. I don't even feel like it was an ongoing worry. But the kids now, you think in their lifetime, the things that they've seen, And there's a certain level of anger about it. Like we didn't manage it well. We've been selfish. And then just that worry about what if. And I have a new grandbaby on the planet. So now my mind stretches even farther to where, what is her life going to look like? But I see on the positive side, I see so many good initiatives that are attacking the problem from different ways, which is encouraging. And I think it's that matrix of everyone showing up to help in their own way with their own personal strengths and skills. So, kind of what Erica was speaking about, like we have to take care of people who are displaced. Okay, there's people that they're on the front lines doing that. And at the same time, there's people that are, fighting to not let them cut down, rainforest trees. And it feels like everyone's doing their part, but there's still a lot of people on the sidelines. So the more that we can, inspire people to lean into the area that they care about the most, that's, I think, where things could really escalate quickly in making changes. And when I'm talking to people, because it's kind of what I do in philanthropic advising, I'm always saying, what are you working on? And there's a lot of people that say, well, I'm not really doing anything, but I should. And then the next question is, well, what should I do? And I always say, well, I don't know. We've got to figure out what your core values are and the area of focus that you would want to make a difference in. And then, this is a journey to figure out the kind of I always say it's kind of like dating. You're going to meet organizations that are trying to make changes, and you're going to meet the people doing the work, and you're going to really bond with some of them and realize that that's not your lane, and with others. But the more that we can get people to realize that, I always say it's their no big deal talent, that thing that they do effortlessly. If we can connect into that, then we'll have them for a long time doing this good work. And most people, it's that thing when you compliment someone and they go, oh, that's no big deal. Well, that's what we want, because that means hours of time are going to get put into this and they won't even realize it. And they're going to, there'll be changes their life because they're using their no big deal talent to change the world, which feels good. And for some reason, no one wants to admit that when we're doing this work, it does feel good. It does add to our lives. And the best part that I see is that the people that I get to hang out with are just the coolest humans on the planet, because they are people who care about something bigger than themselves. So, I worry about the kids because it's like I want to tell them it's going to be okay. But I do see we've got to remind them that there are old people trying to help. And so, engaging everybody multi-generationally in doing this work is where the big change is going to happen.
I love it, Marty. There's old people that want help.
We haven't given up.
So Tammy, I saw the smile on your face on the no big deal. I just think that was fantastic, right? I mean, how many of us have the no big deal? To every one of you, to your second nature caliber, it's a no big deal, but to others, it's a big deal.
Well, and I think that that's really the magic, right? Poetry in motion is watching somebody so skilled at what it is that they're doing that it looks effortless, right? That is true poetry in motion. And everyone has different skill sets, but most of us were born with really one or two that are really our lane and that you excel at, and you literally do make it look effortless. It looks like it's something that you've been doing your whole entire life, and it looks so simple. Most of the time you see people with a serious smile on their face when they're doing that. I can tell you so many times talking to someone of them saying, I do this for free, right? This, I don't even need to get paid for this. This is, I love this so much. I do it for free. And if everybody could find that lane, but it doesn't have to be just in your job, doing something in addition that really does make a difference and really does make an impact. All of us can make an impact. Some people don't have enough cash flow, so that they need to do more educating and more top of mind awareness to share information with other people, or more an opportunity for volunteering. And then there's others that have more money that can maybe add a little bit of cash flow, and looking at whatever that gift is. For me, my main focus, and it doesn't matter whether I'm at work or at home or in my community, probably my strongest skill set is seeing a talent in somebody they didn't see in themselves. And I think that then people become who we tell them they can be. And now they see a much bigger picture. The biggest problem is exposure to experiences. If we haven't exposed people to an experience, they don't know what's possible. They don't know what they can do. Just even seeing that video at the beginning of this, I mean, that moves you to the point of, oh my gosh, we need to do something, right? And we are the small ones. The planet is, Mother Nature is much bigger and much more fierce than us. And there's nothing more humbling than going out by the ocean, especially when there's a storm raging, and realizing just how small we are. But every one of us can do some sort of a part. And it's just having those conversations so that you can find that talent in somebody, expose something to them, and then they get caught up in it. And it's amazing how creative people can be. I was at an event about a year ago, and this woman at MIT, young girl at MIT, heard that because of there being so many third world countries, that there were a lot of girls that couldn't get an education because they had no light. So they couldn't study when they got home, and they worked all day and they didn't have the same opportunity to go to school. So she actually knew exactly what she wanted, and she invented a flashlight that doesn't take batteries, and it lights up by the warmth of your hands, so that girls could study in other countries. I think that there are tremendous gifts, and I worry about the next generation too, but I think that there are tremendous gifts, and they are so passionate about wanting to make a difference, not just nonstop working 24/7 and making millions of dollars, or knocking that next thing off of the next rung off and accomplishing those things. They really do want to have some sort of a work-life balance, and they feel the best. Even looking at the Great Resignation, they want to live on purpose. They want to have meaningful connections. They want to be with a company that has organizational values, and they want to do something that makes an actual difference in this world. I'm very optimistic about the next generation and the generation after. We just need to do our part in being able to share with them what the possibilities are, and then let them spring on from there.
Excellent. So that's where it leads into perfect to Chitra. Chitra, you mentor so many children to, as a 35 years in AI, doing the future and what that is like. I mean, you think about the next gen and how you're going to play in that space, or how you play in that space. So let's talk about some of those things that you're working on, and I think what it gives to you.
Yeah, I want to go back to Marty's and Tammy's point. I think the biggest, I would say, inflection point has been the previous generations, either due to a number of factors, they considered Earth to be an infinite resource, I think, and that therein lay the problem. And now we are, all of us have shifted how fragile our environment is. So I think the recognition and being aware of what is going on, and not being close to scientific basis of climate change and problems, I think it's a must. We cannot stick our head in the sand and say it does not exist just because I don't believe in it. It's not a question of belief. It's a question of what we are observing, what our sensory organs are telling. I think that's very, very important. All of us should think about not just what we are consuming, what we are leaving behind. I think that profound shift in thinking is what is now, it makes me hopeful. You've read about the Earth Prize that Prince William and his team have launched. And think about one of the finalists is a young person where in India, ironing clothes is a cottage industry. It brings livelihood for millions of people and gets a job done. Instead of burning coal, how do you use solar power to power the iron? So you're providing it, making it easier, for a lot of people to get into that business and earn their livelihood, as well as at the same time, you're protecting the environment. So lots of examples are like that. Not only recognition, I think often what happens with the climate change, it seems so amorphous, it's so big. I am one person, what am I going to do? Where am I going to start? Marty was talking about it, right? People recognize it, but stay on the sideline. And I think we have to pick our own connection to it. For me, pollution. So pollution, of course, is horrendous and brings about health impact in bad health effects. But what I've also learned is that Lancet had published a recent study where they list pollution as one of the 12 modifiable factors responsible for 40% of dementia around the globe. Think about that. It's alcohol, tobacco, pollution. For the first time, that's a very important, I would say, research article. Not only it is talking about our habits, it's also what is happening in the environment being now highlighted as an important factor affecting. That means it's not only limited to our physical health, it's also about our mental health. So having known that statistics now, I made it, okay, what can I do as an individual, as a family to reduce the pollution or contribute to it? So wherever you can walk, can you not drive? Take the public transportation. So we can start in small ways. I think otherwise what my worry is, people look at it as a big, this gigantic problem. How am I going to, as an individual, as a family, address it? And all of us can pick our issues that resonate with us and choose habits that will make it better for everyone else.
I know that, excellent. So I know if you address the no big deal, you are an incredible AI scientist, and I've seen you at work analyzing things and go, how did you do that? And you're like, well, blah, blah, blah. I mean, so, and it's just amazing. So I think the idea of the no big deal is that's the passion of everyone behind, because they can make it to where it's second nature there. So I just want to put it out there. So I'd like to address, you have the positivity of newness and what Marty brought up. Just 3 days ago, most of you know that I'm a horticulturist. I love my plants. And obviously we have a water drought system here. And my water bill, for everyone knows, is only $60 a month. So I'm keeping it good. But they came in and my youngest said, Mom, you need to do something about your plants. You're using water. And I turned around and I said, I've actually cut my water bill. I put topsoil, I put mulch in, I've done a lot of extra things to make sure that I can minimize the amount of water, and I'm saving water other places to make sure that I can have the oxygen to the point of life, because it's reverberating the oxygen back into the atmosphere by having the plants. I have very, very, very little grass. It's almost all potted plants. And the idea is that he just gave me this look, and he had never, ever said that to me. So the comment that Marty made about the next generation, of being not happy with what's going on, it was the first time my kids have ever made a comment. Not that they want to do the yard work, but the fact that now you're using too much water, I thought was very interesting. It was like, thank you very much. So Erica, have you noticed when you brought up the ocean, how many of us live close to the ocean? Just made a comment of right? So, and go to the ocean almost every day. Erica, you live on the water. It is what it is. I live 4 miles from the water. And I think Chitra, you're the farthest away from the water itself, actually the ocean. But yeah, I mean, that beauty of the ocean and the beauty of what it brings to you and the environment. So Erica, the no big deal. Everything you've ever done, you've been the first to doing it in the service, in the capacity of what you were doing, or part of the team, or part of the graduating class of the no big deal. Share some stories of the no big deal about the accountability of what you've been doing.
Well, from an individual standpoint, we get things in our mailbox all the time saying, hey, you're in the tsunami warning area, and here's what your neighborhood could look like in 20 years, which, the water from the ocean has basically just washed out half our neighborhood. So I think if you can get people and anything and any sales and any like real world situation to think of it on an individual level and how does this affect them, then maybe they'll kind of pay attention to, all right, I should pay attention and do my part. And some people would say, well, recycling and all of these things are just not enough. But I think most humans want to feel like they're part of the solution. And this is such a complicated problem. Like, how do you stop China from having their industrial revolution with 10 times the population we had in our industrial revolution, right? How do we regulate and hold these countries accountable for what they're putting in rivers, what they're putting in the air, what they're cutting down? It's a story of capitalism and money versus the environment, but there are ways for them to work, in tandem. But we're not quite there yet. So, to the point of the next generation, having Gen Z kids, 19 and 17, yeah, they do look at us and they're like, you guys screwed this world up for us. And all they hear is 24-hour news cycles of negativity and the planet's going to fall apart and our politics are a mess and divisiveness. I can't imagine, growing up right now. You just try to shelter your kids and instill some sense of service so they're aware of what's happening around them and see where this next generation might want to plug in to be part of the solution. But then again, they're like, this isn't my problem. However, I gotta live with it. So I don't know. I see it from a lot of different angles.
I think you hit on the fact that if we look at the positivity that Marty talked about, we have to become the stories of, yes, things are different now, but this is where we came through. But the idea is the opportunity to create change, to be the forerunner. It's like, I wish I would have created this or this and this back in the day, because now look what the success of leading up someone's innovation. Now, every one of our children could be an innovator in some capacity. They could be a change maker to really grow, to Tammy's point. So I love the ideas is that we all are in very different verticals. We all have done very different things in our past. But I think that as leaders, to Tammy's point, we have to really highlight the strengths of that. To Marty's point, no big deal, of how do we integrate better of something that we take for second nature, that we can showcase and share how we get that done so we all can be better stewards to not only ourselves, because the fact is, are we getting enough sleep? Are we going through our community? How are we giving back? Are the burden on the community because of the displaced people, whether it's because of poverty, because of a natural disaster, because of coming back from the service and being in a different place? All those things pull on our community. And then the planet. What about all the commercial flights that are going to space? What is that doing to our world? Because now we're dealing with all those, let me get a free ride to space. And obviously 20 million is not quite free. But all the space things are going on. And most people don't realize that in space, you age faster, the impact of what's being done. Yeah, you can do some great testing, but they're now seeing all the different effects of it going to people who actually are in space and going through that. So that being said, Marty, back to you. So you talked about the no big deal. Let's address, from the philanthropic side, you're doing 140 nonprofits that are pro bono to Chitra's point. Then on the flip of the side, you're dealing with these families on what, and to your point, I love the way you paraphrased it. It's not that you're giving them ideas. You just said, what are your values? You allow them to come up with the ideas and curate that. Have you found to do the full circle that they're more coming into playground to say that they look at, because they're families, because they're high net worth individuals, that they're more worried about their children, or are they more worried about the community impact? Or you think it's a combination of them?
Well, I can share with you that, COVID changed a lot of thought and actions. With, a lot of families got all of their planning in order, like their estate planning, and got everything, documented properly. And then I think they looked at it and said, okay, but how's this going to affect my family? And, how much is enough for my kids? How much is too much for my kids? But more so, realizing that we're not immortal, what's my legacy going to be? And so I I've been doing so many more family meetings where we're starting those conversations. And so I'm seeing two things. One is being more intentional about it. So if you want to be philanthropic, what does that look like? So really wonderful exercises with multi-generational families where we start with a values deck of cards and have them pick their top 5 values, and then you can see your children's values, your values, if you've got even more generations engaged, and then where do they intersect? So where do those kind of that Venn diagram of what's the shared value that we all have, and then so giving each generation, each individual, a way to make impact, but then as a family, what's our family legacy? And so that's been probably one of my favorite things to do, because you see the light bulbs going on with families, and you see these deeper connections and levels of respect multi-generationally, because it helps the parents understand their children and grandchildren more. And then the second layer of that is when you start talking about how to do this. The families that have family foundations, that's a terrific training ground to prepare heirs for, what's to come. But what we're seeing is that they're wanting to make sure that the portfolio of assets that are within that family foundation reflect the values that they've just identified. And so we're seeing a lot more filters, that's because it's and it used, like, the first layer kind of in the early days was no fossil fuels. Okay, well, that everybody realized that that's a difficult filter because it's ingrained in so many different things. But now we're seeing, filters that are, investing in companies with 30% women on boards. It could be that have a bottom line impact on the environment, that are so, and or a percentage of their assets going to longer term things like innovative housing projects, where it's riskier, the return might be longer, like the investment might be a 10-year commitment, but it's and so they're kind of taking some of it and saying, we don't care how much this money is going to grow. We want it to reflect our values. And or they're doing more loans that can get recycling the money, so that they're supporting startups and smaller companies that are being innovative. And so there's a lot of interesting things going on, but I feel like we had a little bit of a planet shift in the values centered work that, when I first started 11 years ago, and I was talking to the wealth asset managers in our firm, and I was saying, we really need to start offering, options for, double bottom line investments and ESG type of, and they would look at me and kind of roll their eyes and pat me on the head and go, yeah, that's nice. And because it's so much more work to do that, I get it. And it wasn't something readily available, but now it's client driven. So now, it's amazing that how different our firm now has specialists in it and has different funds, and we've hired filtering companies to be able to filter out what the clients want. And so, now we're there, but it's interesting just that, how this has all changed.
Well, to your point, was shared with us just a couple of nights ago that there was 300 people in your field, and now there's 1,000 people that are in your field. So, I mean, it's showing the respect of what's going, right? And I believe that is such a powerful thing, that if you think about each one of are such passionate to the no big deal doers on changing the industry or changing the deliverables get into, those who own the brokerages or run these big brokerages like Tammy and Teresa. It doesn't mean that you have to be a high net worth individual. You can do this intergenerational wealth transfer of being only 5,000, 10,000, or 100,000 in the portfolio, because the idea is that the whole idea is, my mother used to say, I want you to be better than me. That's the most important thing. If you can be better than I am, then I've succeeded in raising you. And that's the whole thing. We want something better. It doesn't have to be necessarily wealth. It can be just, I believe, the quality of life, because it can be different things to different people, right? So that being said, thank you for that, Marty. So if you think about where, Chitra had talked about last month about lead by example, inclusion is enough, press for parity and strive for excellence and everything. We are so passionate that drives the no big deal. How do we move forward with this and being accountable for our actions such that we can use our leadership skills to help others that we might not know that we can help? Because right now, are we traveling as much, or are we talking to people, or are we, so logistically, we're so tied into our phones, or are we, communicating with people getting an elevator and things like that, because COVID had us wearing masks, COVID had us not communicating and having that synergies. And now we have a lot of other things that we're dealing with. So how do we as leaders communicate better to help pass on the play it forward in being accountable? Chitra.
It starts with every one of us, right? So this cannot be reinforced even more than what we are doing. So accountability starts with all of us, and it needs to be melded into our life going forward in everything we do. So that's the way I would look at it. That how do we as leaders lead our lives by example, so the next generation is looking at you not worried, but seeing that we are setting good examples for the future generations. It's not. I think it's a lifestyle. It needs to be made integral in part of everything we do. So we are conscious of every action, every tiny decision we are making, that this is folded into. Climate change is not something as a separate topic we'll come and discuss and then we go on with our lives as such.
Well, like you said, for every action, there's a reaction. So the idea is that we have to make sure that, to your point, and we've got to, and my belief is that we can't assume that everyone knows what we know. I think that's one of the biggest things that we are not, showing by doing versus in talking. But at the same time, that we have to really remember that our experiences, our knowledge, our infrastructure might not be as strong, or could be very different. So sharing information, even though at the expense of maybe being repetitive, it's always good to share something that someone might not know. And you can always start a great conversation by that. So I think that's excellent. So thank you, Chitra, for that. Tammy.
Well, I think there's a couple things here. One, if we only focus on the solution and not the problem, I say that often, and I believe it with every fiber of my being. It's so easy to get caught up in the problem and to keep focusing on where there are problems and what's going on, instead of in what way can we do this better next time, and in what way can we do something to help and contribute right now. I did a white paper on affordable housing and housing affordability that just came out, and it actually all triggered because I got interviewed by somebody that just kept drilling me and drilling me and drilling me, and it was 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I had COVID. I was just unbelievably sick, and my patience was right about there. And he just wanted to stay angry and stay with where everything was unfair. And I said, wait a minute. And I just lit into him with like 25 different things going on across the country, that if we actually all shared all those things that were working, we would find more solutions, and we would be able to utilize what they're using in North Carolina, what the California Association of Realtors is doing for grants. We could pull all that stuff together. And I feel the same about the climate or anything else that we're dealing with. If we focus on the solution and we share what's working, and even more important, share the things that haven't worked, so that I think everybody's ego gets in the way, and they get caught up on ego and who's going to be first. And it used to be in corporations that profit, Peter Drucker, number one, the responsibility of a CEO is profit. And now, Ariana Huffington wrote an article a few years back sharing that they realize that they actually have to make their community a better place, that they have to focus on mental health, that they have to focus on their people, that if they do those things first, they'll still grow and they'll still profit, maybe not to the extremes, although some of them are. But it was a great thing to see that level of shift. There's a great book, and I know we typically bring books up, and there's a great book, and it just came out this year, and it's called Big Potential. And it's written by Sean Achor, ACHOR. And he talks so much about, when we get tied to a mission and we can get other people caught up in our mission and we can share it. And there's a perfect example, and they've done unbelievable amounts of studies of having people literally looking at a mountain that they have to climb. And if they're looking at it on their own, they see the mountain is almost double the size that it is. But when they're with somebody, they see it as 25 to 30% smaller than it actually is, because you have somebody else that's sharing with you and coming with you. And there are so many things that when you can get other people tied to the mission and they can lift you up, and we all have different personality profiles and we can pull it going forward. But I think it starts with focusing on the solution, number one, and number two, let's share what's working and let's share what's not working. Let's literally shout it from the rooftops, because that's going to trigger another idea. I see so many times when people go into a boardroom and they want to collaborate, but nobody wants to say anything. They either want to say something to justify their job, or they don't want to say anything because they don't want to look foolish, instead of let's just spit it all out, because a great idea is going to come from this. Some of the best ideas that I've ever had in my life, certainly personally and business-wise, have come from a stupid idea. But if I hadn't sounded it out and hadn't said it out loud, it wouldn't have gone to the next thing. So I think we've got to find as many places as we possibly can. And this is wonderful because it's social media, and this can keep on living and it can keep spreading to the next group of individuals that see it, and something's going to spark with somebody. And it might not be our specific words, but something in that sentence. I remember trying to teach my kids algebra, and I actually had to teach Shane using football analogies because he just couldn't pick it up. Maybe there's something just from a different angle, and it's going to make a big difference for everybody else. So let's just all be intentional about sharing.
I love it. Thank you for the book. Our bookworm that has more books than God. The library to prove it. So Erica, so what's your in closing out?
So leadership's ingrained in us. I mean, the definition is in my head every day, because if we don't lead correctly, you could lose lives, either in the service or out. So leadership is the process of influencing others to accomplish a mission by providing purpose, direction, and motivation. And this can be a heavy burden that we all feel sometimes. And whatever our passion is, whether it's people or a cause, sometimes you can feel alone and that burden is heavy. But to Tammy's point, it's so amazing to be around other like-minded people who are assisting in whatever that mission is, and it doesn't feel as heavy and it feels much more manageable. And you feed off of that and you get energy from that to kind of keep pushing through whatever, the problem is. And also, what Tammy said resonates in that, you may be getting older like us, and we've seen a lot of things in our life and have dealt with a lot of people, but we don't know it all. Every day we're learning. So handling a situation or a person today may be different than it was yesterday. They're different set of circumstances. So you have to be flexible on how you approach leadership. Because again, you may have a model of what you think works, but it is not going to work in this context. So how do you continue to use your judgment and your experience to mold yourself into accomplishing whatever that is in a different way? Because it's not one size fits all.
No, it's so everyone knows, I think, Erica, the world of Erica, and she's me on steroids then fold. So I appreciate the way she talks. So I'd like to go back to the sharing, and something I learned very important when I saw Chitra. When we went out, I don't remember, we went out with one of your friends, Chitra, and we had dinner, and you were describing one of the gentlemen who, when he was thinking that, we say intentionally of our leadership skills, that when he was thinking that he'd literally have his head back like this, and you think he was completely sleeping, and yet he was formulating a conversation, and he'd pop up and say something for 30 seconds and go back. Remember that conversation?
I did think you were sleeping initially.
But the power that you said of the genius that came out of his mind, because he was acting like a machine of processing information and coming to ideas and just spewing them out and coming back. Sometimes when we get to the reason I'm coming around the circle is one of the council members made a comment, well, Desiree, can you this? And Tammy goes, no, it's the way her mind thinks. We all have different ways of intensity of putting things out there. And so the imperfection is my goal, to the organicness, to get you to think outside the normal box, to think of weird things. And then if I go around the circle, you're going to go, oh my gosh, I remember, and we trigger off and feed each other. So I love that. So that it came from you, actually, Chitra, when you described that. I'm thinking, they're not doing anything. How come they're not reacting? How come they're not arrogant? She's got the whole plan already written and scraped and already talking about it. That kind of power of connecting really impacts me. So I think about those things, and those little tidbits is, to Tammy's point, I picked out of something that I never forget. I always think of the conversation on a regular basis, as little as it was powerful to me.
It's actually looking at that differently. It is listening, actually. Often we try to want to get our word in. I think by closing his eyes, he was shutting out all those distractions and just focusing on the very conversation points, that were being made, and was able to internalize it and come back, synthesize a new idea. So it's a skill I think all of us try to improve. Listening is such an important leadership skill.
We have that as principle number 7. Thank you. All right, so Marty, close us out before we go into, we all go. So how about you?
Well, it's been such a great conversation, and I would, just invite anyone to just lean in on, looking at, if someone says they want to try and do something new or try and make a difference, but they don't know where to start, just kind of opening their mind up to what's coming at them and the things that they see happening in the community that they wish that were different. And so sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's reflecting on your own life and looking at what are the things that impacted me that, that changed the trajectory of my life. Was it a mentor? Was it, YMCA summer camp where I met my husband? Those kind of things. Like what are the things that, if they weren't your life might have been a little bit different. And sometimes those are the areas that you can lean in on. But it really is just starting to do things, even in a small way, to do the research to figure it out. And even in that journey, it's fun. Where one of my favorite things is when a client says, one client I was working with, they were saying that they wanted to help the people in Eritrea. And I'm like, I don't even know where that is. And I don't know how to spell it. But it opened up this world to me that I had no idea what was going on. And it's basically, similar to how North Korea behaves in Africa. And so it was just fascinating. And I would encourage people that when you get to go on those explorations, to learn that you realize how sometimes it's overwhelming how many things in the world we could work on, but we all have to find our own lane and narrow the scope to the areas where we could make the most impact. But it's a fun, I just can't encourage people enough that this is a layer of your life that if you add it to your life, that it exponentially will help. Like when my husband and I in 2008, 09, when we were getting our rear ends handed to us, people were saying, why are you guys not more stressed out? And I said, well, because we've stood beside and helped people with no homes. We have a home. There was just this level of, we knew that in our worst day, we could sell our house. We still had a backup plan. We have layers of support there. And so we just couldn't really, we were stressed and, not enjoying the moment, but it helped us to keep perspective on what was really happening. And I think it adds so many layers to your life when you engage.
I love it. And the whole thing is that, see, you brought back into the real estate, the positivity. I think the whole thing is that the glass is always full. It's just with what, and what can we do to share that goes out there. And so I would love to give credit where credit's due. Tammy, you had it all about the why. I have for the last 2 months that you talked about that in my training for the new team that has been brought on board, is that it's been about the why. Everything they do, everything they touch. Why are you doing this? I can teach you, but if you don't learn, if you don't absorb what's going on. So from that being said, what is the why? Why do you do so? Everything you are doing, I want you to ask yourself, why are you doing it? What's the end game? Where is it going? Because with that why, I believe that we can be responsible for ourselves, our community, and our planet, because everything we touch and say, why are you doing it? And versus then just doing it. And I think that is a perfect way to close out the accountability, which then brings into our next session next month will be build equality, empower women every day to achieve an equal playing field. And that power is with where we're going to have a symposium. And that symposium is that it's very, very unique to where we come together and we talk with each other, not at each other. And the entire 2-day event is really about not having the stage, but just starting the conversation, and everyone from the audience engages together, because that's how you bring solutions to the, as Chitra says, you can't solve important issues if you're not solving global problems. So the idea is that we have to come together and help this, because with climate, with all the things that are going on in every aspect is so important. So I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for your incredible time and your leadership and everything you do. So with that being said, everyone, this will be out there. And thank you. Have an incredible day. And remember to smile and be thankful for what you have at the moment, and share with those that you can help and serve others. So thank you, everyone. Have an incredible
Thank you.
day. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.